Hey, this is Dirk Nowitzki, and you're listening to the Mavs Step Back podcast.
I like this, TK. I like that. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk get the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Luke with the ball, yeah, get nasty. He'll drop 30, don't gotta ask him. Got Chris Stapps, coach at the Adam. I spaz like Dallas, I thought I'm rapping. God, if Luka shoot the ball, you know that it's cash. But my boy still looking to pass. Now you got my boy Chris Stapps, looking like Duncan Nash in the gap. They just want a ring, wanna fill the gap on your team head. I ain't talking hats, dang, go relax. Till they the champs, defense still coming with the cannabis flow.
Welcome into another edition of the Step Back, a Mavs podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined by my co-host and DallasBasketball.com colleague, Matt Glatson. Matt, how you feeling tonight?
I'm back from the dead. I'm good to go.
Yeah, for those listening, Matt has had a battle with strep throat this past week, and he was kind of like a questionable on the injury report earlier in the week.
I was not day to day. I was more questionable to doubtful, but then I got in there with Casey Smith and I turned a corner and I'm good to go now.
Well, you know one cure for strep throat at least, and I mean I don't have any proof of this, but the Balcones whiskey that our guy Skin was talking with us about.
That's actually a true fact. One of the things I did is when you have strep, like the first couple days are just like literally the most miserable, rotten experience of your life. It's probably the most pain I've ever been in. But like the first couple days, I had like cough medicines or not cough medicines, but like throat soothing stuff and like tea and like all this, like it was just all this shit. And finally, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a little bit of whiskey, just a little bit of whiskey, see what happens, because that's what they used to do in like the 1800s and early 1900s. Like if you had polio, they just threw you some whiskey and you were good to go.
Yeah, man. You can mix it with a little bit of honey if you want to.
Yeah. So I put a little pot still in a shot glass and sipped it, and it actually felt kind of nice.
So, you gotta kill all the bacteria, but
yeah.
I'm glad you were able to get over that and that you were able to come on this week, because I really don't think I want to solo this podcast. I mean, I don't know, man. Going for an hour alone, that just seems like a dark place to be.
No, yeah, I don't think that would be very fun.
I'm not Stephen A. Smith. I can't do a solo radio show like him and have something to talk about for an hour.
Well, we do a podcast for our SMU coverage, and it goes like 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes because it's just one person talking, and that's like as long as one person can go, is like 15, 20, 25 minutes. But it's not too bad, but it gets really boring really quick.
Well, I guess before we get into some Mavs stuff, the NBA playoffs, they're still going on. We're well into the second round. The Trailblazers, they evened up the series with the Denver Nuggets the other night. They won 97-90. It's tied at 1 apiece. And then tonight we've got Game 3 of the Philadelphia 76ers Toronto Raptors series. It's tied at 1-1. And I believe the Sixers are up by 11 at halftime. So
yeah,
they
got
have
that game on my TV right now, actually.
Yeah, they've woken up here in the second round, and Joel Embiid, he's having a good series, and Kawhi has been unbelievable. But the Raptors, they're not being as dominant as I thought they'd be. I have them in the conference finals with the Bucks. So
I think I still have that.
I mean, I think it's eventually going to happen, but I don't know. I figured that they would, pretty much wipe out the Sixers, given how vulnerable the Sixers looked against Brooklyn in the first round. I know it was a quick series, but, it really, more likely, if the refs hadn't gotten involved the way they did in that series, it should have at least gone 6 games. So, I mean, Brooklyn played them really well, so I don't know if that's just a case of the Sixers overlooking them a little bit or what, but
well, maybe it had a little bit to do with D'Lo being an idiot.
Well,
I think he's a really talented player, but did you hear what he did earlier this week? I guess it was today. He got caught trying to sneak weed in through airport security in like a big fake Arizona iced tea can, which even if it was real Arizona iced tea, you can't take through security.
Yeah, that wasn't the brightest move for the future restricted free agent this summer.
So, a little disappointed in my boy there. Tough look for my guy, but
I mean, look, he's a really good young player and everything, but that's not something you want coming up. Like, that's the worst possible timing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like, where are you going that you can't already get weed anyway? Like,
right,
you're a millionaire, like, all-star athlete in the NBA. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. Like, you can get weed wherever you want to. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, look, while we're just talking about the playoffs, one thing that has kind of annoyed me, we've got 4 series going on right now. We've got the Nuggets and the Trailblazers. We've got the Rockets, Warriors. We've got Bucks, Celtics, and we got the Sixers and Raptors. Like, why in the world are we having days with just one game on? I mean, I get it when we get to the conference finals, but I feel like there should be a game or multiple games every day until you get to the conference finals.
You know, man, I'm not really sure. You remember back in the day when it was like 40 games and 40 nights?
Yes.
Like, that was fun. I don't know if it was one game every night, but it like. You know, I just feel like this playoff has been like, for whatever reason, it's been more boring than usual.
Well, I don't know.
For the Portland series.
I just really love watching basketball. If there is a game on, I want my TV turned on and I want to watch it. And that's what I love about the NBA playoffs is, you know, until you get up to a certain point, which should be the conference finals, you get to watch basketball every single night. It's a dream come true. It'd be better if the Mavs were in it and, you know, they were advancing. That's going to happen next year, guys. But, you know, it's like, you know, the Rockets and the Warriors, they played Game 2 on Tuesday. Game 3 isn't being played until Saturday. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Like, why do they need Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and all of Saturday up till Saturday night to play Game 3 of that series?
Load management. You got to manage those loads.
That's so dumb. Like, I guess they have to do whatever they have to do to stretch it out as long as they can. You know, it's probably...
You got to give Robin Lopez and Brooke Lopez their time to make the Robzilla commercials.
Well, and honestly, I think it probably has something to do with the NBA trying to stretch out the season as much as possible. You know, they already start the season 2 to 3 weeks earlier than what they used to. And then, you know, if they stretch out the playoffs a little bit, and then right immediately after the playoffs, when the finals end, you have the draft a week later. And then after the draft, a week later, you have free agency. And then a week after free agency, you've got summer league. And then you have like a 1 month lull period. And then bam, it's training camp, and you're jumping right back into it again. So I mean, they've really done an excellent job stretching out the NBA to where it's almost year round at this point.
No, yeah, it's the most year round sport outside of soccer probably, and it's really nice because I mean I'm an NBA junkie. I mean, I know people don't always agree with my takes necessarily, you know, but you can say that about any person. But like I pay more attention to the NBA than almost anything, and you know, soccer is a lot of fun to follow. That's the only thing is like I kind of wish NBA's off season was a little bit more like soccer, where people are just, you know, throwing hundreds of millions of dollars around just for the rights to talk to somebody. It makes it so much fun. But
well, and look, the NBA, they do it the right way because I mean 82 games, that's a long season, but that's nothing compared to baseball, which I believe is double that. If I'm correct, is it 164 games? I don't know. It's
yeah,
something.
so
It's
168 maybe 162.
Okay. Well, anyway, Major League Baseball, they have 162 games or whatever, and you really don't hear anything about baseball until it's like everybody's talking about opening day, and then once it ends, it's just over. You don't really hear much. At least I don't. I mean, I obviously don't pay attention to all of that, but there's always something going on in the NBA, and for them to be able to do that when there's, an 82 game schedule, and make it year round, it's really, really cool to see. And I mean, it's really enjoyable, and it makes what we do, more fun because there's always something going on.
No, yeah, there is. It's really nice. I kind of wish football was more like that because I like almost forget that the NFL exists. I don't forget that it exists, but like, you know what I mean? It just like kind of goes away until the draft, and then it comes back, and then it goes away again for a while, and then it's football season, and football season completely dominates everything, and then it goes away again, and it's just like, anyway.
But anyway, another part, we'll actually get to talking, Mavs related stuff now, but let's see, today is May 2nd, so we are under 2 weeks until we get to the draft lottery on May 14th, and according to Mark Cuban earlier this week, spoke with him, we were talking about planning when he's going to come on the podcast, and we had tentatively scheduled for him to come on right before the lottery, but he's unfortunately not been able to work that out for that week, so we have rescheduled for closer to free agency. But in talking with him and the scheduling stuff, we went ahead and talked about who the Mavs were sending to represent them in the lottery this year, and it's CEO Cynthia Marshall, which, I mean, if we would have thought about it a little bit more, we probably could have seen that coming. But, there were a lot of people that wanted Luka or Dirk to go to it. But, I mean, come on, Matt. Those guys aren't going to – I don't think they're interested in – like Luka, I don't think he's interested in flying all the way back from Slovenia to to represent the Mavs in the lottery.
No, yeah, let the guys have their rest. Especially
Dirk.
He's earned it. He doesn't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, Dirk just retired, and he's spending time with his kids and going to the Dallas Stars games. Shout out to them, by the way. They're having an awesome playoff run right now.
Yeah, I was at the game last night, and it was amazing. They won 4-2, and I was sitting in the section with all the players' girlfriends for some reason. Like those are just the seats that we got, and they were all on their Instagrams the entire time. They weren't even watching the damn game. It's like, why are you even here?
I mean, is that really surprising in this day and age?
I mean, not necessarily, but like if you're at the game wearing your boyfriend's freaking jacket in a playoff game, I expect you to like look up and see, like, even when they scored a goal, they were like, "Oh, okay, cool." They got back on Instagram. It's like, get out of here.
Obviously, I wasn't there. I keep saying I have to go to a Stars game because the atmosphere just looks absolutely electric. Every time they show Dirk, the place goes wild. So, he's having fun doing that. He's hanging out with his family. I'm sure he'll, go on a couple of extended vacations this summer. So, I mean, you don't expect Luka or Dirk to take time out of their free time this summer to go to Chicago for the draft lottery. So, I mean, I'm fine with it. I think sending Cynthia Marshall is a good choice. Like we were talking about earlier this week, at least it's not Michael Finley.
I assumed it was going to be him again. Just because it's been, the last however many years in a row?
It's been the last 2 years.
I thought it was more than that, but
maybe 3. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm just glad that they changed it up. It's nothing against Finn. He's great. He's the vice president of basketball operations. He does a good job with all of that, but we with the Mavs' lack of lottery luck They needed a shakeup. And, I mean, ever since, I mean, if you think about it, good stuff has happened ever since Cynthia Marshall was hired. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that
she's good luck. She's good juju. She's good, whatever the other words for good luck are everywhere. But, you know, it's going to really piss me off when I'm watching the lottery, Dalton, is Dan Gilbert's kid's going to be there again for like the 37th year in a row.
Oh, my goodness. That kid's like 30
I know.
now, isn't he?
Like they keep sending him like it's some kind of novelty or something, or like good luck charm. It's like you all haven't had good luck in the lottery. It has not worked out for you more often than not.
See,
like
that's
they got
what
Kyrie, but every other pick has been like the best pick they've got is like Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, but the thing that makes me upset about that is, you know, let the kid be a normal kid and, you know, let him. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he wants to do it, but like you said, they almost treat him like a novelty or just a good luck charm that you must go and and do this for us. I mean, if he wants to do it, fine, but I don't think they should. I'm
sure there's part of him
it.
that wants to do it, but like it's got to kind of get old after a while. It's like, okay, we're doing the same bit again, and it's nothing against the kid. It's just like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's tired of being there, and he's just like, okay, Dad, like, I guess I'll go do my job. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, anyway, like I said, I'm happy that Cynthia Marshall's going to be there. I don't think it's a bad choice. I'm not like I was gonna say before. I'm not gonna predict anything, but you know, it's good vibes. It's good juju, like you said. So we'll see if she brings the Mavericks Zion Williamson in about a week and a half. Then she is like that's gonna be what she's remembered for.
She's already if she does that, she's already got God key. Right.
So, you know, she can, you know, we talked about this earlier in the week. As of right now, like when you see Cynthia Marshall, like she is the nicest lady ever. She, you know, she's done everything right since she's been in Dallas. But when you see her and you hear the name and everything, and this is nothing, like she couldn't do anything about this, but I mean, you automatically think about, you know, why she was hired in the first place, and it was to clean up the mess, you know, with the scandal last summer that the Mavs were going through. So when you see her name or when you see her or whatever, that you kind of think about those times and why she was hired and all that. Well, you know, this is a chance to where, you know, if she goes to the lottery and the Mavs get lucky and they get Zion, then that completely changes how people see her.
If she gets us Zion, man, I'm telling you, she will forever be like the person who got us Zion, in my opinion. Like she could do anything for the rest of her career. She could sell the Mavericks or not sell the Mavericks. She could resign the next day and like go get a job with like the Rockets and start bringing them all kinds of good luck, and I'd still be like, you know what, it's fine. She got us Zion, and I will love her for eternity because of that. Like, she's amazing.
Yeah, like I'm not saying give her a full Dirk Nowitzki statue outside American Airlines Center, but I mean maybe like
a Zion,
like a regular size one. But anyway, so that's coming up. That's like I said, that's a week and a half away. That's on May 14th. The draft lottery. We're still hoping for the best, but you know, and I have a gut feeling that the Mavs are going to keep their pick. And like I've said before, the odds care not for my feelings. The odds are the odds. But I mean, you have to believe that the Mavs' bad luck in their franchise history, they've got to at least have one time where something goes right. And I mean, maybe this is it. I feel like this is it. They've never had, and even though they're technically in the 9th spot, they have the same exact odds as the 7th and the 8th spot. That's all. The only thing that their positioning in the lottery matters for is, what second round pick you get, which is, it's inverted. So they technically are in the 9th spot in the first round, but they'll get the 7th pick in the second round, which works out.
That was their little lottery win that they've had already, so that might be
what
they get. But we'll see.
Yeah, it was a small win, but given the 3-way tiebreaker, it was the best case scenario. So even if they don't keep their pick, the Hawks get the 9th pick in the first round versus, if the Mavs had finished 6th and not kept it, and then the Hawks end up getting the 6th pick. So I mean, I don't know. That's a little win, I guess. It makes the worst pick the Hawks get, the better the Luka trade looks. So I don't know. But they will have the 7th pick in the second round, and hopefully they will have a top 4 pick. Hopefully they get the first pick in Zion. But we'll find out in about a week and a half, and then after that we'll be able to, completely start to put strategies together, potential strategies for the Mavs heading into the rest of the summer. Because, I mean, at this point, it's just a lot of speculation. Even on our pod with Skin, when he came on, we talked about, potentially pairing either pick 2, 3, or 4 with the trade exception, and, maybe for a player like Miles Turner or Steven Adams. But even that's just speculation. Without keeping the pick, none of that even matters. So I'm ready to find out what happens.
Yeah, no, we'll see. I don't have a lot of faith, but that's what I have you for, Dalton, is to carry me forward and keep me optimistic about life and things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm perfectly fine carrying the positive the positive energy for DallasBasketball.com. I'm here for all of you guys if you need me. So, but anyway, speaking of positive thoughts and all that, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, I've got a lot of positive stuff to tell you about Kemba Walker. Matt, I don't know if you have.
I've said my piece about Kemba as far as statistical analysis goes. So what I'm going to do in this part is just kind of is play more of almost of a devil's advocate role and trying to get you to convince me why he's a good fit and all of those things. So it'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I've got a piece I'm working on right now about Kemba's potential fit in Dallas. And look, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. It's not a perfect fit. But as good of a player as Kemba is, it is a fit, and it can work. It's imperfect, but it can work, and it can help the Mavs be a better team and, become a playoff team. So anyway, we'll get into that when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. All right, guys, we're back. Obviously, one of the hot topics involving the Mavs this week is that they've narrowed down their top priorities for free agency, supposedly to Kemba Walker or Chris Middleton. And if you're looking at both players' team situation, you have to figure that Kemba Walker is probably the most likely out of those two. In fact, Mark Stein, he was on the Ben and Skin show today, and he was talking about how there's interest on both sides, and that the Mavs have a very real shot at getting Kemba. So, what's your initial thoughts on that, Matt? I mean, I know how you feel about Kemba Walker, and you think he's a little overrated and everything, but just throw that out the window for a second. What do you think about their actual chances of getting Kemba?
Well, I mean, it sounds like they're pretty good, right? I don't think Steiny Mo would say something like that if he didn't think it to be 100% true. And I don't have a hard time believing it either. I mean,
Yeah, when Stein says something like that, you definitely listen. He knows what he's talking about. Very, very well connected, especially when it comes to the Mavs. So, I mean, they've got a real shot at it. Like I said, Kemba's team situation, he hasn't been to the playoffs very often. You know, he's been carrying the load for Charlotte basically his entire career, and they haven't done much to get him any help over there. So I think he's going to be looking for a change of scenery. If he makes one of the All-NBA teams, he'll be eligible for the Supermax contract, which would, you know, if the Hornets decided to do that, they're the only team that can give players a Supermax is the team that drafted the player. So they could, in theory, give him a contract worth up to $45 million a year if he made an All-NBA team.
Lord.
Which would, I mean, you've got to figure at that point, as good as Kemba is, as much as he produces for them, you've got to figure that they wouldn't even go that high to sign him back. I mean, maybe I'm giving Michael Jordan too much credit here, but you know, but given that much money, and you know what else they have on their roster currently, it might be better for them to just let Kemba walk and, you know, start tanking and build through the draft. So, I mean, it's going to hurt either way. I mean, I saw a Bleacher Report article the other day and said that, you know, they were screwed if they let him walk, and they're screwed if they sign him. So, I mean, I think a lot depends on him making that All-NBA team, which he has a legit shot of doing. I think he'll definitely make that third team. But if not, or even if he does, you know, the Mavs, their max for him would be 4 years, almost $33 million per year. So the total contract would be around $130 million. Given what the Mavs have on their roster right now, I don't think that's gonna handicap them as much as you think, Matt.
No, I don't. First of all, I want to say he's in a terrible situation in Charlotte. There's nothing good about anything in Charlotte right now. If they keep him and pay him the Supermax, then he's going to be stuck with no help around him for the rest of his career in Charlotte. And if that's what he wants, fine. If they let him walk, then they're back to square one, which is a really tough place to be.
It's always hard losing a player for nothing in free agency like that. I mean, yeah. even if it's in the best interest for the future of the franchise. I mean, you've got a 26 point per game guy that also averages 6 assists, and you know he's 28 going on 29. I mean that hurts when you have a guy that's been there that long and producing that well just walk for nothing.
But if that guy already is having problems getting you past the lottery with what he has around him, which I know is not much, then giving that same player a supermax deal and restricting what you can do around him even less is just a nightmare. So,
but look, yeah, but I mean, we've talked about it. His supporting cast has been horrible. Kemba.
That's what I'm saying, Dalton. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is like if Charlotte re-signs him, then like they to a supermax deal, they have absolutely no hope of putting anything better around him. Like they're already having a hard enough time of it. That would just make it like absolutely impossible.
Right. Okay. Well, I thought you were using, you know, Charlotte's inability to, you know, make it to the playoffs with Kemba. I thought you were using that as a reason for Dallas not to pursue him. But you know,
no, what I'm saying is that he, by signing him to a supermax deal, they would restrict themselves even further in what they can put around him.
Right.
And they would just be stuck forever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why. I mean, I don't think Charlotte would do that. But like I said, you never know with Michael Jordan. If somebody's going to do it, he would be one of the guys to pull the trigger on that, I would think. So we'll have to see on that. But I mean, as far as Kemba's fit in Dallas, everybody's concerned about his fit because he's been ball dominant pretty much his entire career, which, like I've tried to point out many times, what other choices he had. Because I mean, he's carried the Hornets. He is the Hornets. He has to do everything for that team. He hasn't played with another guy like Luka, somebody he can share responsibilities with and maybe play a little bit more off the ball. So he's never had that opportunity. So to say that he can't do it, in my opinion, is unfair because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think he could play more off the ball. It's not a situation like with Dennis Smith Jr. where, he's still developing and, he really doesn't have his stuff together and he goes through these lulls where he's not confident in his shot and all that stuff. It's a completely different dynamic with Kemba Walker. He gives you 25, 26 points a game. He shoots 36% on he shot 36% on three this past season on about 9 attempts per game. So, I mean, to me, that's pretty good. Over the last 3 years overall, it's been closer to 40%. So, I mean, given how the Mavs want to play, I could see that working with Luka and Kemba. I mean, I know there's not a lot of evidence to support that fit because of how he's played, but I think it's been more situational why he's had to play the way he has. Well, I really think it could work.
That's kind of, I'm not going to sit here and, I think I said this earlier before we took our break, I'm not going to sit here and spout stats. Mike, what I'm going to say about that is that he's played the exact same way, more or less, I'm sure, since high school, college, and since he's been at the pros. He's been a score-first, ball-dominant point guard. You said I think we talked earlier before the show started, like he came into the league when he was 21, so he's been playing in the NBA that way for 7 years. So I don't understand, and I understand he can do it like in spurts in Charlotte in like certain situations when like, they have one other scorer on the floor or something. But I don't understand what makes people think that a guy who's been playing that way for 7 years is going to sign a max contract for the first time in his career, finally get, close to what he's deserving of getting paid, which he's getting criminally underpaid right now, and then all of a sudden just come into a new situation with a couple of, younger players and being the highest paid player on the team outside of Porzingis and just be like, oh, yeah, no, I'll take a secondary role even though I've never done that in my entire life. I have no problem with that. I have such a hard time believing that he's going to be able to do that. Because if you bring him in and then you say, okay, Luka, you're rookie of the year, you're the future of our franchise, but you're going to be the secondary ball handler now, he's going to be pissed. If you take Kemba and you say, hey, Kemba, I know you've been a ball-dominant, primary ball handling, primary scoring guy your entire life, but we're going to sign you to a max deal, but you're not going to be that anymore. It's going to be Luka, and he's 20 years old. He's probably not going to like that. So that's one of the cruxes of this entire situation for me is like I don't think that people realize that he's not just going to change everything he's done for his entire career just to fit with the Mavericks because his agent wants him to.
Well, I don't think it's, necessarily, it wouldn't be what his agent wants him to do. I think if Kemba leaves Charlotte, I think he will be open-minded enough to where he will consider changing the way he plays. He doesn't have to change it all the way either. He just has to, tweak it. He's still going to get his numbers. He's a good enough shooter. He's a good enough passer to where, he and Luka can share the ball and still get theirs without, just one of them carrying the load on their shoulders individually. So, I mean, I can see that happening because he hasn't had much, he hasn't had much help in his career to this point, so he hasn't had much team success. I think pairing him with a dynamic young duo of Luka and Kristaps Porzingis will change that. I mean, that automatically becomes the best supporting cast he has ever had in his career. So, I mean, I don't think he will do as much, and I think he will adjust just fine to playing off the ball, than what most people think. That's just my thinking on it. I mean, I'm not going to act like I know Kemba Walker, but just my perception of him and, some stuff I've seen him doing, community work and just like interviews talking about playing basketball and his teammates, stuff like that. Just from what I've seen, he seems like the kind of guy that would be open to tweaking how he plays to make it work, whatever it takes to help the team win. I don't think it's, a situation of he's one of those hard-headed, super ego guys that he's going to have to get his. I think he would really try to do whatever he needs to do to help the team. But I mean, that's just me. Like I said, I'm not.
No.
I don't know him. I don't know for sure that that's his mindset. But that's my perception of him, given what I have seen.
Well, no, I don't. I'm not saying that I know Kemba either, and I'm not saying that he won't be able to change. I'm saying that even if he wants to change and he's okay with the idea of it, and he signs the contract, there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to break that kind of, those kind of habits that he's been displaying for his entire career. Like that would be a really hard transition for a player to make, to go from being the man for the last 15 years of his life since he first started playing competitive basketball to being third fiddle.
But listen to me. I don't think it's a matter of him being third fiddle. That's what I'm saying. He can still get his numbers. I mean, it's not like he's going to go from averaging 26 points in Charlotte, to 17, 18 points in Dallas. He's still going to be – they can play in such a way that he still gets his numbers and Luka still gets his numbers and Kristaps still get – because, I mean – you've got the point guard position you're going to be getting a ton of points from. You've got the wing position you're going to be getting a ton of points from. And you've got your big that's going to be, in my, just me looking at it, you should be getting, 20 plus from each of those guys. And, I mean, I don't see it as him being a third fiddle. I think he could still get his number. I mean, technically, if the franchise had to choose between one of the players, obviously I don't think he's going to be first, but I mean, just from a production standpoint, I don't think he's going to be giving away much just by tweaking his game. Not when you're playing with a guy as gifted as Luka is. He can set him up and help him succeed, given that he's able to shoot. That was the main problem with Dennis Smith Jr. Dennis, he's capable, but he was too hesitant. He didn't have his mind made up a lot of times. He drove without a purpose. He when I talked to him in New Orleans earlier this past season, he told me that it was no problem at all for him adjusting to playing off the ball. But, the way he plays and him not being an established shooter yet, you could tell by watching him on the court that he was having a lot more trouble than what he wanted to admit. So, I mean, that's my main thing. The way Kemba shoots the ball and the way he's able to create his own shot and, he can score over bigger defenders when he gets to the rim and all that. That's my thing. I think he can adjust better than what the Mavs have tried to do so far. I think when you get to talking about elite talent like Kemba Walker and what he's able to produce, when you're talking about, putting an elite player with another elite player or two other elite players, I think they can make it work. That's how super teams are formed. And I'm not saying, we talked about this earlier, and I know I'm ranting about this a little bit, but I'll get your thoughts on this one too. But we were talking earlier about, this is an extreme example. Before I say it, I'm going to tell our listeners, like I told you earlier, I'm not trying to say that Kemba Walker is Steph Curry. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying, if you look at when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, everybody knew that team was going to be awesome, but they had like the same mindset. They were thinking, okay, well, Steph, he's probably not going to be the man in Golden State anymore. Well, I mean, if you look at it, he's actually, Steph has a higher usage percentage than Kevin Durant does now, even though Kevin Durant is, their best player, in my opinion. So, I mean,
and they're getting out of his way in the playoffs now. They're letting him take control. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to disrupt you. I'm just saying, like, that's a completely different dynamic in just about every single way. There's not anything similar about it.
There is, though. There is something similar. You have a great, and look, I'm not comparing Luka to Steph. I'm not comparing Kemba to Steph or vice versa. Any of those players. I'm not. Don't focus on the players. I'm just saying, you had a star player who was ball dominant. And Steph, he's another elite shooter. He likes to have the ball in his hands, but he has no problem playing off the ball. He's comfortable doing that because he's a good shooter. But you had an elite player who was, perceived to be the guy in Golden State. Kevin Durant comes. It's like, okay, well, is he going to lessen Steph's importance or his role or whatever? No, both guys are still getting theirs. And that's the thing. That's why Golden State is, as good as they are. They have all these superstars that are producing at the same time, and it's overwhelming for other teams. And like I said, I can't say this enough. I'm not comparing Kemba Walker to Steph Curry. I'm just saying, if you add a 26 point per game, 6 assists per game guy to this Mavericks roster with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, you're going to get good results. That team is going to score a ton of points. They might give up, 120 points per game, but they're going to score 125 points per game more times than not. I mean, I understand that he's not a good defender because of his size, and I get why you would be hesitant to give him max money. I would hope that we could, if the Mavs wanted to sign him, that maybe they could get him for under the max. But if they do, my whole point this entire week has been trying to say it's not going to be the end of the world if they do. They're going to be a better team for having Kemba Walker if that happens.
Okay, I get that. They're going to be a better team, but they'll have a ceiling because they won't be able to do anything else. That's what I've been trying to tell you all week, is that if you sign Kemba Walker, who's a second tier, let's be honest, he's a second tier free agent. There's 4 or 5 first tier free agents. Everybody else is second tier behind them. He's not a first tier guy. So if you max out your cap space signing a second tier free agent, you automatically put a ceiling on yourself as being at best 4th or 5th in the West, because you're not going to be better than Golden State, you're not going to be better than Houston, and you're going to be right on par with like Oklahoma City.
But you don't
Denver.
know that. You don't know that.
I do know that, Dalton, because you can't put Kemba Walker, Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, and then a bunch of trash on a roster and say it's going to be better than Houston and Golden State. You can't.
Look, Kevin, we don't even know. Golden State may not even look like the same beast that we've seen the last few seasons after this summer.
I know, but I think even if they lose Kevin Durant, I still think they're the best team in the NBA.
And look, and another thing, I don't think you can even compare it to Oklahoma City and their situation, because the whole thing about Russell Westbrook is they're going to be paying him as a 34-year-old, athletically declining point guard that can't shoot. That's the thing with Kemba. He can shoot the ball. And
I know. What I'm saying is the Mavericks have so many needs of things that they need to improve to be better and to make a real playoff team, that putting it all into a short 28, 29-year-old point guard who's a high usage guy is not a good way to build a consistent contender with 2 young stars going forward for the next 10 years. I just don't like that idea.
They are not putting it all in there. That's what I'm trying to say. Even worst case scenario, let's say that they give Kemba the max contract, which for them would be around $32 million per year. Let's just say they do that. Well, right now as it stands, they'd have to make a move to get, because I think they're right at $30 million in cap space. So if they just stay the way they are, they couldn't give him that full max anyway. But like we've talked about in previous episodes, they have ways of gaining more cap space than what they already have. You can either try to offload Courtney Lee to some team. If they won't do that, you could still stretch him, and instead of his full 12 or 13 million coming off the books, you get 8 million in cap space just by waiving him. Dwight Powell, which as we've learned, he's probably going to get extended, but even if he doesn't and he opts out, something weird happens, because nothing's finalized until it's finalized, as Mavericks fans have learned over the years. But say he opts out, that's another 10 million in cap space. So I mean, it does. And when they sign Porzingis, and they sign Kemba to whatever they sign him to, as soon as they become an over the cap team, it's my understanding they'd be able to use the mid-level exception, which would be around $4.5 million. So I mean, that's enough to get you one of those third tier players we've been talking about in previous, like a Ed Davis or something like that. It doesn't handicap you the same way it would the Hornets giving him a supermax contract, or like what Russell Westbrook is making in Oklahoma City.
Obviously it's not gonna handicap you like a supermax. Nothing handicaps you like a supermax, but it's just I just feel like a better route to go would be to sign 2 middle tier guys to maybe even shorter contracts, like Patrick Beverley and Bojan Bogdanovic, or what was the other one we talked about? Goran Dragic and Vucevic. I just think that's a better basketball team than bringing in Kemba Walker and like another guy and then calling that your team, because we know Powell's getting extended. Cuban said it 100 times already. I mean, I don't know what kind of legitimate ways you can improve your team after you sign. If it's Kevin Durant or one of the top 1 tier guys, I'm totally fine with that, because that's an elite player. But Kemba Walker is not an elite player. He might be an all NBA player for the first time this year or whatever it is. I mean, but he's not Kyrie Irving. He's not Klay Thompson. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not Kawhi Leonard. There's a drop off there.
But he is an elite player. He may not be that tier of elite player, but he is. I mean, he is consistently produced. He was an all-star for the 3rd straight year. Like I mentioned earlier, he shot 36% from 3 this year, but over the course of like the last 4 years, he's been consistent, hovering around that 40% mark from 3. And I don't know how else to say it. He's a walking bucket. How Rick Carlisle is about wanting to have multiple ball handlers on the court. I mean, he's about.
Well, if there's anybody that can make it work, it's Rick Carlisle. I'm just saying, like, I like the idea of more flexibility than a 6'1", 29-year-old at $33 million a year.
And look, the 6'1" thing, which, I mean, in my opinion, just looking at Kemba, that seems a little bit generous, but even that doesn't mean as much to me, because we've talked about, in my opinion, at this point, we can't fix everything all at once. If we get Kemba and, we're putting up 120-plus points a game, that's going to be a really fun team to watch. And I've said it before, I think you could make comparisons, depending on who else you fill in, with the two starting positions around Luka, Kemba, and Porzingis, I can see comparisons to that 2014 pre-Rondo trade roster that, before they traded, they had Jameer Nelson as the point guard. You had Monte Ellis, who was, that was the beginning of the end of him in Dallas. But you had Jameer Nelson, Monte Ellis, Chandler Parsons, an aging Dirk, who was still good, and Tyson Chandler. And that was the best offensive team in the entire league. So, I mean, yeah, they gave up a lot of points, but at the time of the trade, I believe they were like the fourth seed in the West, and they just decided to go for something bigger. I mean, I'm not saying that signing Kemba Walker would make the Mavs an instant championship contender. I'm not saying that. Like you've said, it locks you into that core of those three guys for the next 3 to 4 years, but it's also a much, much better team for the next 3 to 4 years. The Mavs haven't made the playoffs in 3 seasons. So even if they make it as the 7th or the 6th seed or something next year, that's still a huge step. And I mean, you want Luka getting into the playoffs and, seeing what he can do there and getting that experience. So, I mean, to me, it's just not a bad thing, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, Luka is going to be, it's going to be about 7 or 8 more years before Luka is an unrestricted free agent, before he's in this situation that Kemba's in right now. And, Kemba could be long gone by then. So, I mean, to me, it just doesn't matter as much about where their ceiling is over the next, 3 to 4 years. Because, I mean, I know we have an accelerated timeline because of how good Luka has been, but the fact remains, the Mavs still aren't a playoff team. But they automatically get better with Kemba, and you have a offensive juggernaut at the very least.
Okay, but I guess that's where our at the core where our biggest difference is that I don't want to be stuck at like a certain ceiling. Like, they have so much flexibility this summer to do so many things, and to keep flexibility, going forward, and especially if they get the draft pick, like, there's so many possibilities. But I don't want to be, the Nuggets, where the best year in like their history, they're a 2 seed and they go 7 games in round 1.
Dude, I would love to be the Nuggets right now. Are you talking about
Dalton? I don't want that. I want to take down everyone. Like, I don't want them to make a move because he's a pretty good name, and we feel like he's a pretty good fit. I guess, kind of, maybe, we're not really sure, but he's the best we can do.
Hold on, wait.
Let's do it.
Are you comparing, like, if the Mavs signed Kemba Walker to the Nuggets signing Millsap? Is that what we're?
No, what I would compare it to is Darren, like, not Darren Williams in terms of, like, how fit he is physically, but it's like, they chased him because he was the best they were going to get, and it didn't work out, and that's fine. But I don't want them to sign a guy to a max deal just because he's the only guy they can sign to a max deal.
But we even talked about this earlier too. With Darren Williams, he was always a risk. Even if, yes, they did dodge a bullet. But
I literally just said I'm not comparing their how durable they are physically. I'm just saying they were chasing him because they thought he was the only max guy they could sign. So they chased him, and that didn't even end up working out and thank God.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if they had signed Darren Williams and his health would have, been okay, that would have worked out well for them, because when healthy, Darren Williams was an all-star point guard at the time. But his body just, he couldn't stay healthy, and he started his decline, and that his health had a big part in that. So I mean, you have. And
they also didn't have Euro James Harden on that team already.
But I mean, what I'm saying, you have to factor in the durability a little bit, because that's insane. The durability
is great. That might be my favorite aspect of Kemba Walker. that you've told to me out of all the conversations we've had this week.
4 games.
His durability.
He's missed 4 games in 4 years. And
I think that is incredible.
While carrying that franchise on his back, doing everything, he can possibly do to help them, and to only miss 4 games in that span of time, that's like unreal. So, I mean, durability is definitely not something, you can worry about. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think, and I said it before, he is not a perfect fit. They'd have some kinks to work out, but it's not something that can't be worked out. Not with the level of player he is, and the level of player Luka is, and Porzingis and all. Porzingis, I'm not even worried about him. He's going to fit with anybody. That he's the unicorn, but just the style of play with Kemba and Luka, I understand why people are hesitant, and I'm just saying it could work. The Mavs could do much, much worse this summer, than signing Kemba Walker.
I just think it's much more prudent to spend money on multiple good players and have a more complete team than to put everything into Kemba. And like I said, if it's Kawhi or KD or Klay Thompson, that's one thing. But if it's Kemba, I have a real hesitation about it. I'd rather have a deeper, more Toronto Raptors style team that has a lot of good players on it, and and 1, maybe 2 pseudo stars on it, than Kemba and Luka and KP, and then just a bunch of dudes.
Well, look, if everything, if it resorts to the Mavs signing Patrick Beverley and Vucevic or Dragic and Vucevic, or some combination of those players, if it comes down to that, that is fine. That would be a perfectly acceptable offseason for the Mavs. But I don't think we can go about it the same way as like the Raptors, who are in the East. We've learned from LeBron moving to the West that just because you have a certain collection of players, star power is going to win in the Western Conference. Elite players are going to win in the Western Conference. I don't think you can piece together all these guys around Luka and Porzingis, and you might have a really good team. But we were talking about ceiling earlier. I think you've got a much higher ceiling if you sign Kemba Walker than if you sign Patrick Beverley for 2 years. Or, if you sign Vucevic, I don't think you're going to get him unless you sign him for a 4-year deal. So, I mean, to me, I think your ceiling's higher if you go with Kemba. And then the salary cap, it's rising higher and higher every summer. That $32 million, that's not going to look as bad, 3-4 years down the road. So, I mean, that's just my thinking on it. And, I mean, I know I'm not going to 100% convince you that it's a good option. And I mean, I'm like I've said before, it's not my preferred option. I like to dream big and think that the Mavs could get in on the Kevin Durant or Kawhi sweepstakes or something like that. But I just think from what we know now, Kemba's the best player out there that they can acquire. And I think you have to have that mindset of signing the best talent you can. And that's just my thoughts on it. For the Mavs to be as good as they can be in the immediate future, they're going to have to add elite talent.
Okay, and I just think it's more prudent to sign 2 players for $32 million that are really good players than 1 second-tier free agent for $32 million. But I don't think there's anything that we're going to say to each other necessarily right now that's going to make me change my mind on that. But I'm not saying that the only thing that would make me
look. I'm not saying that's a bad option either. I think, like I said, I think that would be fine. I just think if we're talking about where we want the ceiling of the team to be, I don't think that team is going to get you any further than if you go and get Kemba and then sign somebody with the MLE, mid-level exception, and, a couple of veteran minimum people that you could get to, that want to hop on for the ride. I mean, that's just my thinking of it. I mean, I think that would be a fine option, but if we're looking for immediate success, I don't think it moves the needle any more than, I think it actually moves it less than if you sign a guy like Kemba.
Okay, but let me put it to you this way then. If, let's say you sign Dragic for a 1 or 2 year, $14, $15 million deal, would you be okay with that? Is that a good number for him?
I wouldn't do that.
I'm building a point here. Okay.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Let's say 12 million, 13 million, somewhere around there. Okay, and then you sign another good, a good free agent, not an elite one, but a good one for another 2-year deal for whatever. For something around there. Let's say 15, 16 million. I don't know. Like to where it's not necessarily max out Kemba level, but it's still good, but it's only 2 years. And then what do you have coming on the market in 2 years? Where you could have the books cleared with Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off and those two other guys coming off. You have Giannis coming into free agency.
Yes, but listen.
Okay, that's the kind of thing that you want to keep your flexibility for moving forward rather than just tying everything up into Kemba for 5 years.
Okay, again, the Mavs couldn't even, we can't even sign Kemba for 5 years. It would be 4 max.
4 years, sorry.
It would be 4 years max. And, the way Kemba might be different because I mentioned earlier he's been making $12 million per year for the past 4 years, which is absurd to me. That's crazy that Courtney Lee made more money than Kemba.
That's criminal.
Last season. That's almost.
I know I'm making a huge anti-Kemba stance, but that's criminal.
That's so bad. But anyway, so I mean, he's gonna want to get a lot of money this summer, but just looking at players of his caliber, or right above where he's at, the trend, is players. You don't see players taking the max contract as far as length goes this day, and it given his age and everything, it might be different. He might go for the full 4 years, but like I said, looking at the Mavs books right now, you have Hardaway that's going to be coming off the summer that Giannis is available, and you're going to have Porzingis and you're going to have Luka, who will, let me see here. I think, will he be starting his new deal by then? I don't think so.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
No. It should be the last year of his rookie deal then. So, really, all you'd have is, Porzingis and Kemba's money on the books for that season. So, I mean, in the way the salary cap is rising, I feel like by the time Giannis is on the market, it wouldn't matter as much. You could still find a way to sign him. Now, if you're looking to next summer and you want to potentially chase Anthony Davis, I can see your point.
Okay, then use that as an example too. I prefer Giannis, but I'm just saying, you need to have. I can't believe I'm the person telling you this because it doesn't make any sense. But you have to have higher aspirations than, well, we're in the playoffs for the next 10 years. We're not going to go any farther, but that's it. I'm over that.
All I'm saying is I just want. I don't even know how to. I hope people are understanding my point here that Kemba isn't my preferred choice. I mean, but I'm just saying, if they do sign him, it's going to be okay. He is an asset. He produces. He will fit fine. It won't be perfect. They'll make it work, though, because he's an elite player that can shoot the ball and he can score at the rim. He hits his free throws. Lord knows that that we need that.
That would be a blessing, and that would be an absolute blessing to have somebody who can actually sink some from the line.
And it just makes the roster look better having those players on it. And I mean, if he was closer to Russell Westbrook as far as his shooting percentages, I would be completely out on that altogether. But like I've said, I think he's better than Russ is when it comes. I mean, he is better than Russ when it comes to shooting the basketball. So, Kemba at $32 million a year is more doable and preferred, in my opinion. Like, I would take Kemba at $32 million a year for the next 4 years than I would Russell Westbrook at $46 million a year until he's 34. Matt, I'm sure we'll continue discussing this all the way up until, free agency itself. Depending on what happens in the draft lottery, we may just completely forget about Kemba Walker altogether and just, start throwing a parade for Zion. So hopefully,
hey, who knows, man?
Yeah, hopefully something like that happens and we'll have something else to talk about and we're not just waiting on free agency. But that'll do it for this episode, guys. We appreciate you coming in and listening to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts, on what the Mavs should do if they keep their pick, or even if they don't, what you think they should do in free agency. So when we post this article to our Twitter page, which is at StepBackMavs, feel free to reply to us and give us your thoughts on what you think they could do. What's your thinking on Kemba Walker potentially coming to Dallas? So
we should probably do a Q&A pretty soon.
Yeah, we need to. There's a couple of people I've talked to in the DMs on our Twitter page, and they've presented some really interesting points that we're definitely going to get to. We'll probably do that next week on a segment too. And then anyone else listening, if you want to ask us a question, shoot them over to at StepBackMavs, and we'll get to it. We haven't done that in a while. That'll be something different and fun we can do in this little dead period of the Mavs off season. So
yeah, we're gonna have a lot of time coming up this summer, because once there's gonna be a lot of dead space in there. So filling it with Q&As wouldn't be a bad idea. And we always love hearing from you guys, as long as you're nice and not assholes.
yeah. As long as it's nice, we'll work it into the pod one way or another. But Matt, any last words before we head off here?
No, I'm just I'm looking forward to reading your article on Kemba, coming out in the next couple of days, trying to convince me. The one last thing I want to say about the whole thing is if I'm wrong about Kemba, and I've been wrong before, I'm not afraid to admit it. One thing I'm not wrong on is Draymond Green. I think he's trash. But other than that, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I did it with Leighton Vander Esch with the Cowboys when they drafted him. I was pissed, and now I've eaten more crow this year publicly and all that, and I have no problem with it. I want to be wrong about Kemba Walker, especially if the Mavericks sign him. I want to be wrong. I need to see it, and the whole idea just sounds very, well, it has to work out perfectly for it to work, and that's just there's a lot of moving parts in that, and I just don't really, it scares me. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it has to work out perfectly, but I think it can work out, and that's the only thing that I'm holding on to is the way he shoots the ball. He's able to put the ball in the basket, whether he's got the ball in his hands or not. So that's my main thing. So if it doesn't work out, I'm the same way with you. I will come on here. I will say I was wrong. But if it does and it works out, I'm not going to be surprised either. But we'll get into it, a lot more going forward as we get closer to free agency. We got a lot of really good guests lined up for you guys the rest of this summer. But be sure to, like and subscribe to the podcast. And even on iTunes, if you want to leave us a review on there, that always helps. We're trying to grow every single week and bring you guys the best Dallas Mavericks content that we know how. So we appreciate it, guys. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
The Mavs the best on the floor. I'm wild, but yeah, I'm the GOAT. This game get cold. Yeah, you might need a coach. Your friends turn into your foe. But I'ma just roll. Gotta keep rolling your boat. Yeah, I swear I give them hope. I say I'm cleaner than the soap. This time of year proves who will really sink afloat for real. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk at the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk at the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. You know, in this game, it's a lot of grit. You know what I'm saying? Proves who has integrity. Late nights, early mornings, but we all want the trophy at the end of the day. And that's the beauty of this game, because at the end of the day, only the real gonna float, man, for real. You either sink or you float. Only the real gonna float.